On August 6, 1945, the first atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. On August 19, 1945, the second was dropped on Nagasaki. On August 15th, Japan surrendered and ended World War II. On March 1st, 1954, a crew of 23 men on the ship the Lucky Dragon No. 5 were contaminated with nuclear fallout due to hydrogen bomb testing off the coast of Japan. The ship was covered in radioactive dust that led to burns on the crew members and radiation poisoning. The US government denied any information about what the bomb was due to national security. Later, the area that was affected by the testing was expanded and affected more boats in the area. In 1954, Toho was working on an Indonesian-Japanese co-production. Tomoyuki Takada was on board to produce the film. However, with its anti-Japanese themes, Toho stepped out of the project. On the flight back, Tomoyuki conceived of a film that was heavily inspired by the American giant monster movie, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
The Beast! The Beast! The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms!
After being greenlit, Toho looked for a director, and got wartime director Ishiro Honda. Both Honda and Takeya Murata spent 3 weeks taking Tomoyuki's 50-page treatment and turning it into a script. Godzilla was meant to resemble a mix of Tyrannosaurus, Stegosaurus, and Iguanodon, with accents of an atomic bomb blast. The film's production lasted 51 days, and released on October 27, 1954 in Japan. The film released with mixed reviews, ranging from negative to okay. However, the film made 183 million yen at the box office, becoming the 8th highest grossing film of the year, as well as picking up a Japanese Movie Association Award for Best Special Effects and being nominated for Best Picture. The film has since gone on to be considered a classic in Japanese cinema, spawning the longest-running film franchise of all time. In 1955, the film was seen by an American producer who proceeded to buy the distributing rights to the American release. This American release would go on to reshoot a lot of the film, slotting in Raymond Burr and mixing it in with original scenes. This cut of the film, called Godzilla, King of the Monsters, was released in America and had no mention of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, or the Lucky Dragon incident. Despite the film's overwhelmingly negative critical response, it became a popular film.
Dynamic violence, savage action, spectacular thrills, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, fantastic beyond comprehension.
Instead of the dark, depressing tone of the original, the American cut focused more on sensation and making the film be more of a popcorn flick. That, however, didn't stop the film's impact. Godzilla has become one of the most recognizable symbols of Japanese culture and became an official cultural ambassador for Japan. On top of that, he has gained a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to unveil a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for Godzilla. Please welcome our honored guest, Godzilla.
Could you state your name?
I'm Andrew Kuva.
How many Godzilla movies have you seen?
5 or 6.
Did you name them or?
Godzilla 1954, Godzilla 2014, King of the Monsters, Shin Godzilla, and Godzilla All-Star like Monsters All Out Attack or whatever, that one. The really old one with Ghidorah.
Okay. Have you seen any Godzilla movies?
Nope, not a one.
Okay.
The original, then the original,
Mm-hmm.
then the original King Monsters. There's Mecha Godzilla, and there's Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. And of course, K versus Godzilla.
Yeah.
K versus G. Then you have. And it's Godzilla 1985. Wasn't there a Godzilla 2000?
Yeah, Godzilla 2000.
And then there was
The 1998.
if Mecha. There's another one. You have the 1998 terrible film,
We don't speak of that.
and I mean it's there.
Yeah.
You can't ignore it. It
Yeah,
happened.
I know. I get
It
that.
happened. We can't ignore that. It happened.
I know. I get that.
So
A lot of fans try and forget about it.
yeah, it was just a rip, try to merge.
Yeah.
Got Jurassic.
If you take the Godzilla name away from it, it's actually a pretty
yeah, and
Entertaining.
he still uses
yeah.
the voice, right?
Yeah, he still uses the voice and everything, but
The screeching violence.
Yeah, and- yeah.
Then you have the one in 2014,
Godzilla.
and then the King of the Monsters again.
King of the Monsters was good. I really liked it.
It was alright. I hated the. It could have been much better. The previews looked amazing, but I had a problem with that family. That family just
I get that. I get
was a
that.
distraction. But as a purist, for those who love,
Yeah, like just
you know,
monster fights and just that.
it feels like we're missing some.
Did you see Shin Godzilla?
The Son of Godzilla. What?
Shin Godzilla?
Shin Godzilla. Yes.
I've seen that one, but I saw it on a
I like
plane.
that one. He's all cut up.
Yeah. There's Son of Godzilla.
Son of Godzilla. See
Yeah.
now we got Tsuki. Yeah.
Yeah.
Son of G. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 14 including 1998.
Holy cow. Favorite Godzilla movie?
Probably. I'm just gonna go with the newest King of the Monsters because that was.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was nice.
What's your idea on Godzilla?
So, pretty much as far as I know, it's like giant lizard is attacking the Japanese and shoots lasers or something. That's about it.
Okay. Why do you think that a lot of people think Godzilla is just silly, just for kids?
Well, because, like, it's a giant lizard attacking Japan. I mean, like, I can see why they would see that. Yeah. That, and it's more like the action, blow stuff up, Michael Bay-esque type. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Why do you think Americans, in particular, like file Godzilla under like kid stuff or just nothing of substance?
Because for a while, the Godzilla movies were cheesy and bad. I can definitely think of that one scene from Godzilla vs. Megalon where he does the stupid tail thing with Jet Jaguar and he runs and he slides on his tail. And it's like they turned him into like Toho turned him into like a superhero kind of thing rather than what he originally was. And those movies, while still being, destroying stuff, were definitely marketed more towards a younger demographic. And that's why in America they're probably viewed as like kid movies.
Yeah. Do you think the English dubs have anything to do with that?
I just think the English dubs are bad and we leave it at that.
Why does Godzilla matter?
It's a good question.
Like, because a lot of people get turned off by it. They're like, it's
Why-
just a guy in a suit knocking down a big
Why
city.
does it matter? I think the thing about Godzilla, I think for those who defend, I'm writing as I'm speaking, so I could remember. Those who defend the Godzilla films, the G films,
Yeah.
I think are often protecting its initial intent,
Yeah.
and that is, nuclear war, global warfare.
Yeah.
And I had a student write this excellent essay that referred to Godzilla as a rape child of the United States and Japan. And when you think about the experimentation that took place, the violation of not only was there a genocidal act of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and the reality of being this quasi colonial power for 7 years. The United States had control of the Constitution and of the country of Japan, rewriting its Constitution. That there was a famous, I wish I had a photo, I should have prepared myself, but there's an image of an alligator, of a crocodile, swirling around this, they had this kind of it wasn't anime, but it was a comic book strip in Japan. And that creature was somewhat of this fear of the United States, this threat of the U.S. violating this Western power, threatening this Eastern power. So what you have with Godzilla, you have this violation of its identity. Also this mythology of dragons that we find in Asia, even though Japan, maybe not so much, more so in China, but it still exists. And the destruction that we see, even though people associate it as an expression of the nuclear holocaust, in the original Godzilla, what is he really destroying? What is he really fighting against? You remember we were seeing, because he never fights temples, he never stamps on temples, he never stamps on anything that's pure to the Japanese identity. It's only modernity that he's destroying. He's destroying buildings, infrastructure. There's a scene when there's classical music played on a cruise, and he pops up and the music plays. So anything that is Western in the original Godzilla is what triggers this antagonism. And I find that interesting. And all that is lost. This allegorical about power, about control, about nuclear power, and the horrors. Even the creature itself is this amalgamation of nuclear energy, and he's kind of this hybridity of a creation of technology, this fear of technology in the world. And all that is gone. All that is just now viewed upon as something that is toyish, childish, generic.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about Japanese culture, as much as I studied a lot, how they feel about Godzilla. I don't know if they look at Godzilla negatively as well, or as a joke to the U.S. I don't know. I don't know where they stand on it. I don't know the answers a lot, but there's a lot there to work with.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think people like the Godzilla franchise in general?
I mean, pretty much for the same reason why people enjoy watching explosions and lizards fire laser beams out of their mouth. Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it is. Why do you think a fan? Well, I think I already asked
You didn't ask that.
Okay.
What made me a fan was when my dad showed me Godzilla Destroy All Monsters when I was like 6. And I was like, holy crap, dinosaurs. Like, it just blew my fucking mind. Scratch that.
No.
It blew my mind.
No, it's okay. You can swear.
Oh, okay. It blew my goddamn mind. So I was like, holy crap, they're giant monsters. This is so cool. And then it all just went downhill from there.
Well, they have to make them good.
Yeah.
And I would look. the bias side of me, yeah. Do I love the recent guy? Yeah, I like it probably for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I'm watching it and I'm just, I'm 8 years old again, and it's like, yeah, get him, Godzilla. Kick their butts,
Yeah.
do it. Growing up in the 70s and the 80s, Godzilla was always in every B-rated channel. So a lot of people of my generation who are now in their 40s, early 50s, have an understanding of it and have this connection.
Why do you think a lot of people just don't connect with it?
Probably because that's just not their cup of tea. Like, they'd rather watch a drama or a comedy, or I think a lot of people get caught up on the fact that they don't think it has a plot to it, where it's just like the Japanese are getting attacked by a giant lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. People dislike the franchise.
Because they see it as a bunch of people in suits. Like the old ones, they just, a bunch of people in really poorly constructed suits. Which are good for the time, don't get me wrong. But they probably don't like it because they think it's just like senseless, mindless, just two guys in suits or two CGI monsters just battling it out for the sake of battling it out. Like,
okay.
But there's such a big gap. I mean, you had the 1998 film that didn't do much, and there really isn't enough consistency to make that connection anymore, especially in the era of the world changes cinematically after special effects, that is, after Jurassic Park. And Jurassic Park, with its accuracy, there's an inaccuracy with Godzilla that people have an issue. They don't like how he looks. In the newer films, they say his face is too small, and in the 98 film, he looks too much like a T-Rex. So, I don't know, there's something there that people just, like I would say everyone here, if I was to say Godzilla, everyone knows who Godzilla is, and that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah. Why haven't you seen any Godzilla movies? Can you just not interested? Or
Yeah, just never been really something on my radar. I mean, it's just like I'd rather watch something else.
I get that. Okay. Why do you think Godzilla's important?
Godzilla is important because, like, it was a huge influence, I guess, and it was like a huge way of bringing Japanese culture into America. And then it's also, the whole warning, don't nuke. Nuclear energy can be bad.
Okay. Well, do you think the original is an important film that people should watch?
If you want to study, I'm not a film major, I'm an education major.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, camera 2, 1, I don't know.
1.
I am in camera 1, I am an education major. Don't grill me on this. I think if you want to study film, and you want to study the history of film, you study the most important movies from every single era, from most of the countries, that had films.
Mm-hmm.
And Godzilla was an incredibly important film for showing the Japanese, like it was kind of like if we made a movie about Pearl Harbor, which we did in like the 90s, but
With much bang.
yeah. But if we made a movie about Pearl Harbor in the 50s, or there are World War II movies in the 50s, and it's kind of the same thing where it's how they saw the bombs and the nukes as this destructive force that can't be stopped and can't be killed, and trying to think of the goddamn words. It's important because it's showing how the Japanese dealt with everything and how they took it in a more creative way than just retelling the stories. They're like, hey, symbolism, and it's a very important movie. You should watch it because it's just good, and it's just good. It's just good. Camera 2. It's just good.
Okay. What makes the original so good?
The beginning of the first, if you could ever use this, if you could find a way to show just the first minutes of the original Godzilla, that music, that amazing score.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a powerful, wonderful score. and you just feel the intensity. This kind of a prelude that really is so ubiquitous to the Godzilla character. And then, of course, you hear the screeching, screaming in the beginning sequence. If you watch that original, I mean, it's so well put together. The characters are discovering this creature. People are politically trying to figure it out. There's a negotiation of how to solve it, and the design and how the destruction is positioned. In one moment, he's destroying metallic structures and melting it down, or transportation. He takes down boats and trains and vehicles. Then he starts working on buildings, and all those things have to have some sense of allegorical, metaphorical, whatever you want to use, significance in its destruction. And then with that, with those gaps of destruction and action, you have these wonderful characters that are growing as they're trying to figure out a way of stopping. And even what was evil, the evil character, his transition of finding his sense of humanity to stop the monster. In many ways, in the end, he kills himself to kill Godzilla. Just adds an amazing climax. Even the scene where the children of the school are singing, there's this beautiful kind of almost spiritual moment in the end, near the end of the film, to almost recognizing that there are evils on all levels. That it isn't really a story of black and white, how the West looks at evil. In many ways, evil comes in, it's much more complicated, because everyone has, like when we talked about poetic realism, like everyone has their reasons. There's grayness in this world, and the film recognizes that this is not a perfect world. And I think that's, very significant for a film that is just coming 9 years after World War II, and especially for a country that was demonized by the world. And here's a film that is recognizing the ghosts of its past and trying to coexist in its present. And I think all those things are found in this original Godzilla.
Do you know any of the history behind Godzilla?
It's Japanese. That's about it.
Do you think Godzilla is an important figure in pop culture, cinema, and that?
It's definitely recognized as one, I think. Whether it actually is or not, I don't know. That's kind of up to speculation, but it's definitely recognized.
Okay.
What other questions do I have?
Why do you think Godzilla's become such a pop culture kind of icon type?
He's been around for almost 100 years. I mean, he's been around for like 60 something years. And so when you have a franchise that's been going on for that long, it's that, at least in Japan, it's that important. And then in America, it's still kind of big because, America is where every culture can kind of just like mix together. It's going to become big because there's going to be people who like that, like kind of monster movie, and monster movies have been a thing in America since like the beginning of movies. Like I can still remember that movie Ants or whatever, the giant ants that run around.
That.
So it's like that, and that's why it's become big. And same thing with like comic books and like Batman and Captain America, Iron Man. They've been around for a very long time. So if you have one property that's just there, it's always in the background for a very long time. It's going to become some sort of pop culture icon.
Do you think the American King of the Monsters, the American dub of the original movie, do you think that had any implications about people misconstruing Godzilla?
I mean, the American dub of King of the Monsters not only had, the kind of voice acting wasn't new. Live action voice acting dubbing was a rather new thing coming about, so people didn't really know how to do it. Plus, it's just not that good. They had this one character that they added in for the American audiences, and that kind of just fucked up everything.
Yeah.
And so,
And also, they didn't mention Nagasaki, Hiroshima.
yeah, because America kind of is like, ooh, we shouldn't have done that. I think, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not a history teacher, but you know, I definitely think it had something. It had something to do with, you know, how I was received in America. I do believe that the dub definitely changed some stuff.
Like the English dubs are like a reason that some people are just turned off. Like, they're notoriously bad.
Between martial arts and Godzilla, those are the two things. When people start, you know, doing the lip service and all that, feels disrespectful at times because it almost has this racial element to it. Even though you could argue that it's, you know, I don't want to go there, but it just seems like whenever anyone does that, we know what they're talking about, and it just makes it look like a genre that is considered, I think I mentioned this before, low genre, something that fails to really, it kind of degrades the quality of the genre itself. People can't take it seriously when you have dubbing. This is the thing about dubbing too. Not only the lip service is bad, but the script is bad. If you ever, I could show you multiple movies in the foreign film circuit, and the dialogue, depending on its translation, is sometimes different. And if you ever watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, if you watch it dubbed, it's a quite terrible film. The language that they chose for the timing of speaking makes it very kind of generic. But if you read it, it's very poetic how it's designed. So yes, I think watching it in its native tongue with subtitles will serve much better, because you don't have that lip service in the original 1954 Godzilla.
Yeah, because they recut it and everything.
And the other one they did recut. So the one that came after was at 56.
Yeah.
They I think you're right. I think they did do some dubbing with it. I think you're right about it. It's been a while since I've seen that one. But they have Raymond. Is it Raymond Burr?
Raymond Burr.
He's there, and he takes up a lot of the English moments. And I just can't remember if there were, because there's definitely mixtures of subtitles in that version. But I can't remember if some of the actors are dubbed with Raymond Burr. So I can't remember that. But that also, you know, makes it more complicated. They're trying to strengthen his significance with these newer films, and maybe in the third, what's the third one?
King Kong vs.
Godzilla. So the fourth film may have some significance. I thought it's a wonderful job, but I think they.
I'm gonna watch it.
I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I think they kind of missed their mark for whatever reason. But who knows? I mean, we're what, 1954. I mean, Godzilla's going to be 60 years old in a few more years. So, I mean, he's lasted this long. So, but I think right now, I think he is a something of the past, and I think people who recognize it will say, "Oh, that's my dad's favorite. Well, that's my grandfather's favorite thing." So, like the Western. We've replaced the Western with what? You know, with comic book movies. So
kind of comes full circle with like Logan and the.
Logan's a great example. Logan is a Western.
Yes, it is.
And the comic book films, as people, I hate Westerns, are the same thing. They're practically the same thing. They're dealing with all the things that the Westerns were looking at and trying to complicate in terms of its mimetic significance of its time. Yeah. You know, Godzilla, I think, has lost some of that mimetic significance. I don't think a nuclear war, like if there was, let's say, a nuclear war that happens down the road, yeah, I think it will make sense. But like anything, and like a good example would be Dark Knight. Dark Knight, people say, is a reflection of 9/11. You know, because the fear of hyper fear of these terrorist, you know, figures of the Joker, and who's the other one? Bane and the Scarecrow. Those individuals are in many ways are kind of a reflection of our anxiety post 9/11, and I think those Nolan films really say something about how we were feeling, and there's a lot of references about the world we live in post 9/11, and I don't think Godzilla and World War II is so distant that I don't know what other connection that we have that can make that, you know, significant.
Do the human characters matter in Godzilla movies?
Yes. If without the human characters, we have no one to relate to in the movies. If we didn't have like Shirazawa in the first movie, like who shows that like it's like humanity's resolve or whatever, and then like newer ones we have the human characters because they show what humanity like in that world, like if Monarch was real or if these scientific organizations deal with the giant monsters were real, how would they react to things? And so the human characters didn't matter.
But do the human characters matter?
Do the human characters matter?
Because a lot of people say like they don't. It's just a giant monster movie. Let me see the monster destroy a city or fight another monster.
Again, in many ways, you always have the you have this youthful character that is maybe a symbol of modern Japan, and you tend to have this older or wiser kind of platonic character.
Do you think a factor that people don't like it is because there's so many movies? There's like 30 plus.
No. That's full of shit. They're full of shit. They're like, oh, I don't want to watch it, there's too many movies. Because fucking Marvel has like 20-something movies, and people are like, I'm going to watch the Marvel movies in chronological order.
Do you think the number of Godzilla movies there are will turn people off of the franchise, and like they just don't know where to start and everything?
The number, repeat that again?
The number of movies in just all the Godzilla movies. Do you think that turns people off of it? Or?
You think there's an an overflow, or
yeah.
or what's the word we use when you get too much of it?
Oversaturation.
Yeah, oversaturation. I think just and the fact that it seems like it's the same recycled story. Yeah. It just seems like they're not really creating any type of new depth to the story. It just seems like it's the same thing: a technology, a creature, destruction, and people trying to save the people and finding a way to stop Godzilla or save Godzilla. Those things are always seem to be there. One thing's for sure, something gets stomped on. Something will get destroyed. Yeah. That is evident. So, give or take some fire and some tail moving or whatever he does. And he's usually maybe a scientist or a someone who knows something of the history of what's happened. Then you have a military power or some type of tyrannical power, some kind of military or authoritarian power that is complicating this resolution of stopping Godzilla. And a lot of times some are trying to protect Godzilla. And other times they're trying to kill. In the original one, there was a mad scientist, and his anger and detest of what he becomes a manifestation of evil, and in the end, when he realizes how dangerous technology could be, he creates a bomb that could disintegrate. I forget the name of it.
Yeah,
it's an actual science.
Oxygen destroyer.
Was it?
The oxygen destroyer.
All right, oxygen destroyer. But that device, in the original one, becomes the device to destroy Godzilla. But have you ever seen the ending of the original Godzilla? It's almost like it's almost shot like a eulogy. There's this empathy for this creature that is a victim of circumstance, and again, that could be also a connection to the people who were victims of the war, who didn't want the war, or just who lost their families, who lost part of their humanity because of these authoritative powers told them what to do, and then in the end, they become this victim. And in many ways, Godzilla becomes, what was in the beginning this threat, becomes this empathetical character.
sound